Well, what's going on, small groups and super group? Hope you guys have had a great day, and I hope you're excited to dive into another week of discussions as we continue on in this It's the End of the World as We Know It series. Well, this past weekend, Pastor Josh took us through the 4th and 5th chapter of the book of Revelation, and I don't know about you guys, but I love everything that takes place in these two chapters, because what we get in this is the Apostle John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, gives us a sneak peek into the throne room of King Jesus. And just the imagery that's going on there has just always been awe-inspiring to me. And I just love that he kind of gives us that view behind the curtain of everything that is going on. And I've always sat there and read through those two chapters, and I've thought to myself, man, what it must have been like to be in John's shoes in that scenario. His mind must have just been blown away. A few years ago, there was a song that came out, a worship song, that talked, it was all about these two chapters. And it was appropriately titled Revelation Song. And it's one of my all-time favorite songs to ever sing praise and worship to. But the chorus in this song has been the best part to me. I love the chorus. Let me read it to you. It says this. It says, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you." What I love about that was the fact that it was directly taken out of Revelation chapter 4. And what we read with that is that you have this multitude of the heavenly hosts that are all singing this praise and worship non-stop to King Jesus. They're just shouting and singing, "Holy, holy, holy." And a few years ago, I got to take a few students to a conference where there were thousands of other students in one environment. And the worship team, they led us through this song. And I've heard this song multiple times at this point. And like I said, it was one of my favorite ones. But what they did in this environment was just amazing to me. Because when we got to the chorus, they cut all the instrumentation out. So it was just thousands upon thousands of students just singing, crying out with just their voice, "Holy, holy, holy." And right at that moment, it was a moment that brought me to tears, because it immediately took me back to Revelation chapter 4, and it immediately took me back to that moment. And what I was hearing in that time was a glimpse of heaven brought down to earth. It brought me to this point. I was like, man, this is what I'm going to get to hear for eternity. And so every time that I get to hear this song and it gets to the chorus, it just gives me chills every single time. Now, I say all of that to get to this. There were two main points that Josh gave us in his message that stood out to me that I want to highlight for you for our discussion tonight. And the first one is this. Josh gave us all what I'm calling a call to action. His statement was this. And it's what he actually left us with. He said, "May the reality of your tomorrow transform your reality today." And I love that. And if you think about that one for a second, in Revelation 4 and 5, the Apostle John, again, the disciple whom Jesus loved, this guy who walked and talked with Jesus, paints this beautiful picture of the heavenly realm for all of us. And what it means for a believer is that John is giving us, again, that sneak peek, right? But if we know what our future looks like, if we can have this glimpse of what it will sound like with worship environments, like what I got to experience with that student conference, the question is, how should that affect how we live today? Do you simply look at what Revelation chapter 4 and 5 say, the picture that John is painting for all of us, and go, that's cool, and then continue on living your everyday life like nothing has changed? Or does it change how you view how you live in this new identity today? If you know that that's what your identity is going to be in the future, can you live in that identity today? Because if you know that heaven is what God has in store for you, the question is, can you live in that right now? Can you live on that on this side of eternity, knowing that Jesus has called you to live this life, bringing heaven down, living heaven down and not culture up? Now, the second point that Josh made was this. He says, the greatest accomplishment of the devil is to keep you from ever discovering and walking in the fullness of God's plan and purpose for your life. Let me say that again. The greatest accomplishment of the devil is to keep you from ever discovering and walking in the fullness of God's plan and purpose for your life. Then he followed up by saying, if the devil can't make you bad, he will make you busy doing things of no kingdom purpose. And I couldn't agree with those statements anymore. For eternity, we will be worshiping and walking and talking with King Jesus. And the reality is that there's nothing that stops us from doing that here on this side of eternity. However, our busyness can get in the way of that. Our calendars and our priorities become a great tool that Satan will use against us to distract us from living as citizens of heaven now. Again, the real problem with all this isn't really about you, right? Does it distract you from living into the fullness of what God has in store for you? Totally. But the busier that the devil can make you, the more jam-packed that he can fill your schedule and push small groups and church and being on mission to the side, it leaves less of an opportunity for you to live out as being an ambassador for Jesus and living into the purpose that God has always designed you for on this side of eternity. So let me send you out into your discussions with this question. If you know heaven is in your future, how can you live in that reality today? If you know that heaven is what God designed for you and is what you get to live out for the rest of your life, how can you live out in that identity and that reality today? Man, I hope you guys have a wonderful discussion time. I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless.